Oh, we're live. um, uh,
Okay.
I'll answer your question in one sec. Okay, so here we are. We're going live. We are. This is for the Society Project. We are debating the topic of if animals should be forced to be security animals or rescue animals. I think in most cases it would be dogs. So dogs that work for like police dogs or dogs that search for drugs and stuff like that at airports. And then I actually don't know too much about rescue dogs, and I think I heard about avalanche dogs. So, anyways, we'll just hop into it. Vabe, I'm gonna call you Vabe until I get the full pronunciation down of everything. So, Vabe,
It
we're
works.
gonna
It works.
okay, Vabe. What's your stance on this topic?
So we don't have a backup actually. So we need these animals. It's not because I usually care about life and we care. I have a perspective that okay, animal lives are important. Their suffering matters. But when it comes to humans and it comes to their life, I am kind of ready to ignore animals. If I have to save a person or an animal and I don't know both of them, I'm gonna save the human. So for that reason, we need animals for certain things. And search and rescue is the only thing where we don't have machinery right now. We don't have any other tools other than animals. So my vote is yes, we need them.
Okay, for every element of those topics, the search and rescue, and
Most
for
of them, yeah,
the
most of them.
police, and okay, and then Jeremy, if I remember correctly, you have
Yeah.
a slightly different take. So, yeah, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I do have a different take, although I also tend to come down on the side of agreeing with most jobs for dogs. Um, I even hesitate to say just uses of dogs because I don't think they're being used in the same way that sheep are used for their fur. Um, I look at the dogs, and I've been around dogs a lot in my life, and I read some stuff on animal psychology in general. Um, I think that for a lot of these dogs, it pretty clearly provides a life of more positive well-being than um, the typical experience of a pet dog who spends a lot of their day sitting at home without the humans, often as the only dog, so completely alone. Um, Far more sedentary than wolves would be in the wild, probably than the dog's natural instinct wants. They don't get to roam around. I've heard numerous people who seem to have some expertise say that you know some of the happiest dogs in our societies are the companions of homeless people
Hmm.
because they get to be outdoors and they get to move around a lot and they're always with the human. They always kind of have their pack. They don't have to spend that alone time. And that the dogs that people think of as the pampered pets of middle or upper class people are often experiencing much worse well-being than the homeless guy's dog, because those dogs, while their human is away at work, are just living very lives that are very unnatural for them and uncomfortable,
Mhm.
just lying on a sofa being painfully bored. Um, so I think I said in my comment that the only dogs that I would clearly want criminalized are police dogs, and that's because they're just clearly exposed to not only fatal injuries but all sorts of moderate injuries. Um, Canine units, it's part of the phenomenon of police in general. They make excuses for a lot of very horrible behavior, and when a dog gets killed, they sure put a lot of effort into honoring that dog through a ceremony, but in practice, they're exposing dogs to a whole lot of risks
Gotcha.
every
Do
time
you
they use them.
do you feel the same about like an airport security dog?
No, I don't think so. I don't think a dog that's sniffing for bombs and drugs is very likely to be shot by terrorists or something. That would be a very unusual situation compared to the everyday violent criminals that canine units are interacting with. And even if it's not a violent criminal, there's just so many ways that dogs could be injured in
Okay.
policing.
So would you say that if it was limited to where the police can only use them for drugs as well, so if they pull somebody over and they're suspicious that the car is lined with drugs and they want the dog to smell it out, if the dog's only used, basically if the dog's never sent into a dangerous area, would it become okay for police?
Um, in terms of just the animal welfare issue, um, I yeah, trying to separate out all the problems I have with the drug war and the
Hmm.
violations of humans and all of the harm that's caused by that. I guess that wouldn't be so bad of a business job for a dog to be doing for the
Okay.
dog,
It'd be
um,
basically like the airport, but kind of on the go sometimes.
something like that.
Okay. Okay. So, Vabe, what do you think of the idea that Jeremy thinks that the dog shouldn't be used as police dogs that could go into harm's way?
What you said, police dogs, like 90% of their work is in canine units where they are just sniffing for drugs or other contrabands. That's all they're doing 90% of the times. Other than that, I don't have problems with working dogs at all. But there is one place I thought you guys, someone will talk about what happens with them after they retire. Because that's the only place where I have no valid reasons to say it's fine. Other than that, I, I kind of agree with Jeremy that he's not contradicting with my point at all. So
Okay. So, like
most of
when
the time, police dogs are safe, and that's all they are doing. What you just said.
okay. So in the cases where like maybe a criminal is running away and they say stop or we're going to release the canine dog and the person doesn't stop and they do and the dog like stops the person. Um, so any
That
cases like
happens so
that,
rare.
yeah.
That's an extremely rare situation. We need to
But
understand that. And if we have a human who's gonna run away, run and tackle a human, other human who can stab him, I'd rather let the dog do it. I care
gotcha.
about dogs. You have no idea. I have like 20 plus dogs, but it's not about if you're literally choosing that who needs to be more safe, I'd rather keep the person safe.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, Yeah, so one thing I noticed that you were saying was that so you care more about humans than animals, which I agree. If there's a burning building and there's a dog or a person, I'd save the person every time.
With the
But
um,
what's that?
Most of the times, if it's
with,
my pet animal, sorry, please,
I
Jeremy, continue.
I would agree, but with the usual asterisk for any question of population ethics that the typical carnist human causes much more unnecessary suffering than their own life is worth. The typical meat eater causes
Hmm.
far more torture than their own life is worth. So any question that's about saving humans, it kind of needs this caveat that says in a vegan world where that human isn't going to be causing the torture of lots and lots of pigs and chickens and cows and fish.
Yeah,
Um,
I
so yeah. So Carnus human, unfortunately, sad to say, many of my family and friends and students and so on. But if that's how you're living your life, continuing to cause this torture, then it's morally better to save the dog than you. But once you become a human who's actually using your human capacity well to make the world a better place rather than a much worse place
mm,
for your being here, then it will become better for you, to save you than the dog.
yeah. So I guess how I would look at it would be if I couldn't know, if I know the likelihood of somebody not being vegan, and there's a dog and a person in a building, and therefore the odds of them not being vegan, I would still save the human. But you're right. If I was able to know, like, okay, this dog is the greatest dog ever that did all these great things, and this human happens to be a human that knows exactly the tortures that go on in factory farming, and this person's like 500 pounds overweight and eats all the most unhealthy food just because taste pleasure, they care more about taste pleasure than the harm of animals. Whereas if I was able to look at each individual case and there was a human that ate meat, but they were health conscious and they cared about animals, but they limited their meat amount or something like that, even though I would be in favor of something else, I would still save. I wouldn't not save a person because they eat animals.
Of
Well,
course.
that's the question about the psychological prediction of one's actions versus the ethical judgment.
Oh, fair.
I would definitely save my sister rather than one of the dogs too. You know, but as a point of
Gotcha.
fact, she contributes enormously to animal suffering, just like I used to too for many years. And so I can still say it would have been overall better for the world if I had saved the dog or not saved either of them.
Or not
That's
save.
unfortunately the logic that living a carnist animal torturing life brings about. It's not my fault. Don't shoot the messenger. It's just
Yeah, yeah.
it's the behavior of people who are not stopping funding the torture of animals, that they are making their lives
Yeah, I know
worse
what you
for the
mean. Yeah,
world.
yeah. Like if you could hypothetically just take every living human right now and and you put them on a scale of who's gonna cause the most harm and suffering in their lives, and if you just took the 10% out of the 100% that is going to cause the most harm and suffering, and you just snap them out of existence, then there's a it's safe to say factually that that's probably a better world. I wouldn't do it. I don't want to make that judgment
Are
call.
we talking about mass genocide?
Well, I'm just saying if it were to happen, the outcome would be a better outcome than if they were still here. Depending
If
on
we
some
had
other
a process to
variables.
figure that out, but
But
we
yeah,
don't.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's just
just
it's
just just think about any human welfare issue.
hmm
Via what if
Oh, no, exactly, because
if
that
there's a
list I was
city
talking
where you
about.
knew you know you knew that all of the 1 million people in the city were all molesting their children every day,
hmm
you know
Yeah, like
and then also the children were molesting each other or whatever, like everybody's just doing really horrible stuff.
yeah.
and
drop a hydrogen bomb in that
and
city.
and
It's a lost cause.
so that's the kind of thing that we're talking about when we're talking about it's not like we're going to do it partly because we have this kind of hope that maybe borders on faith. I don't want to say it's blind faith, because there's reason to think that history improves, morality improves throughout history. But I think that's what you need. We have the hope that these people are going to go vegan, and then even do the things that go beyond vegan to caring about the well-being of all sentient life on Earth and in space, if we ever find any. Um,
hmm
we have that hope, and that's why our action plan is not to go out and kill a bunch of people, but
Yeah.
just being honest about the morality. There are
hmm
just
When
most people on Earth are making the world a worse place than if they were never around.
But
so
real
we
quick,
need a
so
social reform for that, but
mhm.
we literally moved way away from the topic because
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
Yeah,
think we all agree that we need these animals. I think
yeah,
we agree on most of the points. I don't know about Carson
yeah,
here.
yeah.
What do you
Well,
think,
so
Carson?
I disagree with both of you for very different reasons. um, because you guys are
Thank
on the
God.
same side, but I think for complete different reasons. I'm guessing you would actually be able to convince each other of why you think each other are wrong. But so they you were saying that you care more about humans, and so I do too. So if I'm on an island, I'm going to kill an animal to survive. But just because an animal can be used for a likely survival in the future, I don't think that's a fair approach to look at it. Choosing to kill something to like if me and my family are out in the forest and we're freezing and I need to kill a bear to use its fur for warmth, I'll do that. I'll kill an animal to eat it, but to breed and raise an animal to teach it and train it and I don't know. Let's imagine hypothetically it went through suffering during the training because it would get like a punishment whenever it doesn't learn a thing, versus treats
Positive
when it.
reinforcement, Carson. Went through. Sorry, I'm cutting you off,
You're fine.
but I I actually checked how these guys trains these animals. What
Hmm.
they do is use positive reinforcement. There is literally no punishment. If there is an
Oh,
animal,
okay.
if there is a dog, they can't train them. They don't beat them. They just let it go. That
Gotcha. Okay.
animal is not a part of that training anymore. But there is absolutely no punishment.
Gotcha. So yeah, so I think that I think that's an important thing to factor in. But yeah, I don't know. Like if somebody told me they were gonna test on 10 monkeys and cure cancer, I'd probably say I think that's horrible, but go ahead and do it because the numbers outweigh and but in general, my thought is that we shouldn't force animals to do anything that we don't know they want to do. And so the idea that we can say if we do this, we'll likely save lives because in the future they're going to go and do this thing. Um, I just don't think that's the same as choosing a human over an animal. It's like creating an animal slave. Now, if Jeremy's right and what matters is their well being and this is higher level of well being, then that's kind of an overall like it's bad wording, but playing God type thing of will take away their potential liberty to be out in the wild and run around and have fun because they are very likely to die and suffer horrible deaths, and so they will have better lives by forceful removal of liberty. So, so that's why I disagree with
So
both of you, but I also
The only
agree with both of
problem,
you.
the
so
only problem
so
with playing God
you
is what
disagree
the
because you don't
gods
have
have
the
done.
stats. Uh,
Okay, well,
so you
babe,
don't
go
have
ahead, go
stats,
first.
right? Yeah, let me give you the stats right now.
Wait,
So this
say that again.
yeah, stats. So in my country, the population is 1.4 billion people. 1.4 billion. We train approximately 40,000 dogs for certain purposes every year,
Mm,
and unfortunately, 5% of them die. But we regularly need new dogs because older ones are like 5-year-old or 7-year-old dogs are retiring from their job every year as well. So,
mm.
for search and rescue, these dogs help with floods, with forest fires, and all. So, these dogs are saves approximately 1,300 humans every year in my country.
Oh wow.
Okay, therapy animals. Therapy animals, we use approximately 150 therapy animals every year, including cats. They have dogs and cats as well. Okay. For drug detection, we use approximately 500 dogs in multiple airports and other places. Just oh sorry, 600 dogs in airports and other places. So the problem with drugs, I don't think drugs should be banned, but it should be controlled. Someone needs to control them. So these jobs are important.
Mm.
India have a drug issue, drug problem. Avalanche rescue, we don't have any place where we need avalanche rescue in India, luckily, other than Kashmir. And it's not a huge deal, but still, at approximately since 2011, every year, around 10 lives we are saving. Firefighting, we don't use dogs for that anymore. It's banned in last 3 years, so that's a good thing.
Hmm.
Animal assisted interventions, we use 3,000 dogs every year. These dogs have a job, they are happy. Okay, research and monitoring purposes, we have approximately 6,000 dogs. Now, these dogs do suffer in their job, and 35 to 40% of them die in the process. So, this is the only negative part which I'm not yet convinced that we need that. So, we use birds to detect pollution levels in marine, and say we save marine animals because of that. So, overall, the numbers of dogs we are using, we are saving more lives.
Yeah.
And not all of the dogs we are using, not all of them are dying, not all of them have a horrible life. So if you think about it, if you really think that one life equals to another life, so when it comes to numbers, we are saving more. And animals in wilds, they do suffer.
Mm-hmm.
These dogs have a better life than the dogs or the coyotes we have in wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
let me. I think I think you make a great point, especially when you look at the numbers saved and see how many dogs don't make it. So I have 2 points I want to do. One, I want to take something you said and ask Jeremy about it, and then I have a question for you after that. So Jeremy,
sure, sure.
what would your thoughts be on this topic if we knew that in the wild every wild animal had the greatest life ever, or at least the ones that weren't eaten, so dogs. So let's just say we knew that wolves, instead of only 95% of them not making it to adulthood, let's say they all made it to adulthood. And whenever we go out filming documentaries, every wolf is just having the best time ever. Would it still be acceptable to give them a little less well being for the amount of humans we can save
Well,
with
would
them?
it, would that include human animals in the wild? So like instead of instead of raising your 2 year old at home, uh, taking care
Nope.
of them and trying to mold them, if you just threw them out into the wild and they live the happiest life ever, which is much better than they live at home,
Yeah,
that's not
no.
the case.
So this would be
Humans still need
humans.
to be domesticated.
Yeah, so humans are doing exactly what they're doing now. But let's say we
Okay,
had no interactions
well,
with animals
you know,
whatsoever, and then we
yeah,
could bring
yeah.
wolves in to work with us.
Well, anything anything you did is basically by definition to change somebody having a perfect life
Hmm.
to having a life of just the maximum possible positive well-being into the real world.
Hmm.
It would be bad to bring somebody out of that hypothetical
Hmm.
uh,
But what about
utopia
comparatively?
into the
So
real world.
he said 1,300 humans were saved. How many dogs are trained a year?
40,000.
40. Okay, of 40,000 to save 1,300.
No, 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 no. In different criterias, not all of them dogs are doing search and
Okay.
rescue. This is the number we have. It's off by 2%, and only not I
Oh,
shouldn't say
only
only,
5%
but
of the 40.
approximately
Okay. Well, here, hold on.
5% of them have a bad life or they die.
Okay. So let's just say hypothetically. So in the world, 10,000 humans would get saved by these dogs, and only 500 of the dogs would die, and then the rest would have not as good of lives as they have out in the wild, but they would have as good as we currently give them.
Yep.
So
So
you're
what?
asking me about the would the benefits to the humans outweigh not only the occasional death, but more importantly the reduction in well-being from hypothetical amazing lives in nature to uh, kind of maybe slightly positive well-being, but not a lot of well-being in domestication for different jobs.
Hmm.
Probably not. It probably doesn't seem like the functions that these dogs are being used for have such a large positive effect on human well-being that it would justify that sort of thing. I mean, this is such a weird counterfactual because, of course,
Hmm.
nature is very. It's basically the opposite of perfect. Nature is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
place of
No,
immense suffering.
it's mostly just like figuring out exactly why you feel how you feel and where you feel it. Because I'm guessing they would disagree. It would be because of the amount of humans being saved. If it, what
Oh
was it,
yeah,
10,000? So if 10,000 humans are saved
It's
all over the
no,
world.
I
no,
think
no.
I
I
definitely
disagree
disagree
for
with
two reasons.
Vaya. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think
I disagree
the
for two reasons. It's
uh
Jeremy, I'm so sorry. I
no, it's
work for
okay.
stray animals and abandoned animals. I have been doing that for years now.
Mm.
Those animals who doesn't have job or good people to take care of them, these animals shouldn't have existed, but they do now. So I'd rather let them have jobs than being on road or being on a place where they are not being taken care of. These animals have best life. They work out every day. They get their food on
Mhm.
time. They get to play. They enjoy their lives as long as they're there. Yeah, there is a
I'm gonna
possibility
pause you real
of
quick.
die of death in.
I'm going to
Yeah.
pause you real quick because just in the hypothetical, it wouldn't be comparing them to being strays with horrible lives. It would be if they all the dogs were just amazing, happy lives in the wild. If that were the case, which it's not, would you think that the amount of humans
I'll change my
saved?
stand. In that
Okay.
situation, I will change my stand and I'll be like,
Okay.
okay, let them have a happy and happy life. They don't have
Okay.
that.
So you guys agree more than I thought you did, because I thought Jeremy's stance was only on well-being, and I thought yours was on human safety. So that's
No,
cool
no,
that we
I
figured
am
out
on
how to break
human
that down.
safety. I'm on human safety, but I will not agree with 40,000 then. And I will immediately stop if I had the power to research and monitoring. These
Okay.
things I will stop immediately if they had a
Gotcha.
perfect life in wild, but they
Now,
don't.
now I noticed you said that they stopped using dogs for fires, house fires, but that they
Yeah,
use them for forest
house
fires
fires,
because
yes.
that was a concern
Yeah.
of mine. I don't know how much they are like humans, but it's different to go swimming to save somebody drowning or to various different things that can be done, smelling drugs, but having to go in areas where you're gonna breathe in smoke and like have worse lives. That's just something worth thinking about. So they do go into wildfires still.
Yeah, so we don't have we have a wildfire issue, but not as much, and it's bad for them. But it's just imagine a person whom is we can't find that person. That person is shouting. We have an animal who can literally smell that person and help save a human life. When it comes to that, it's really hard to say that we shouldn't use that animal now. Because
Yeah.
no matter how much suffering a human is bringing in this world, as long as we don't know who that person is, it's our moral responsibility to be ready and save that person.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
I think that also, Carson, I can say this. It will sort of explain a lot that aside from the incentives to horrifically exploit in factory farms, the general phenomenon of domestication seems to be a very good thing for well-being.
hmm
And that's a strange caveat because of the reason why animals were domesticated overall, and what it's led to, the hell on earth that it's led to, that every vegan knows. But if I think about the far technologically and ethically advanced future and what it would look like, I'm quite convinced that whatever non-human animals would exist in that future would essentially be semi-domesticated, living in some kind of amazing sanctuary that that maximizes their own well-being, and there would be no animals in nature. There would essentially be no, in the ideal technologically and ethically advanced future, there ought to be no nature, because nature is a source of immense negative well-being for sentient beings.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, and that's a topic I definitely think we should get into, and there is going to be a debate on patrolling wildlife for next weekend's debates. But just real quick, if there aren't any, I think you guys mostly agree, and I think I've been kind of convinced to lean towards your guys' thoughts on this as well. If neither of you have any other thoughts on the security and rescue animals, I guess I'd like to hear from each of you if there are any jobs that animals have to do that you would want to outlaw. We'll start with Jeremy, I guess.
Any jobs for animals that I would want to outlaw in the society
Like
project?
seeing eye dogs or
I mean, it's pretty clear
therapy
that
dogs.
riding horses contributes to negative well-being of the horses. Both
Okay.
the damage to their backs, but I think more importantly, the process of breaking
Mm.
involves a lot of suffering, and
Now, is it only because we have an alternative? So, like, there's police on horses in like New York. I don't know why they do it, but they don't have to. They can use cars or bikes or
bikes.
whatever. If there was a thing where similar to dogs helping with wildfires and different things, where there was like a uh, I don't know, forest fighting groups of people that can't drive cars or ride bikes out in the
Hmm.
forest, but they can ride horses to get somewhere better. Would there be an exception if it helped the well-being of saving humans, and then also the horse is treated well aside from that riding?
I mean, it in principle, there could be. I'm a consequentialist. If you
Mm-hmm.
could use 100 horses and it would protect an entire nation from very likely threats of nuclear war or something, then yeah,
Yeah. Well, here one
there
last.
could in principle be that sort of trade off, but in practice, I can't think of anything plausible that
Okay.
would
Well,
justify that
and
amount of suffering.
I know that you've said that even though you'd want a vegan world, you wouldn't want to put it in law until everybody was ready. So if it's not in law because everybody's not ready, but you could put it in law that people can't ride horses, would would you want it to be where farmers that would farm cows and stuff like that, until that got put into law as well, that the farmers wouldn't be able to use horses to it's kind of a weird question, but to wrangle up their cattle?
I mean, I want to make it as hard as possible to for cattle farmers
Okay, good. Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
be
No,
in business. So
I just
yeah,
wasn't sure with that stance of yeah. Anyways, so just curious. Okay, so horse riding jobs removed, and other everything else with animals. You can't think of any that you would want to outlaw because of the harm that comes from them.
um,
Or I guess you can ponder while Vabe says his. All right,
Watchdogs. Watchdogs. We have
oh
watchdogs.
yeah,
dogs in yeah, we have security dogs. These dogs are sitting in a building where someone can actually come and try to steal stuff. These dogs are in real danger. We could use infrared cameras, but we want to try and save some money, and we are using dogs. So that's something I don't like.
there's also, I think you're talking about the sort of professional business use, where there's an
Yeah, yeah,
official
yeah.
guard dog, but surely in across the world, especially outside of the very highly developed, wealthier nations, the number one reason why humans have choose to have dogs in their home is essentially to be a watchdog. Across the world, in Asia and Africa, a dog is most likely to be just chained up outside the house, not really treated with much loving attention, and
So the
just there
benefits for the
to
in that
deter thieves and to be
situation,
an alarm clock, right?
in that situation, benefits for the dog always outweigh the danger that dog has. Because in a regular house, the chances of being murdered by someone is way low and way less risky. Uh, Other than if there is a person who's sorry, if there is a building, they make gold ornaments there, and they are using dogs for security. That place is way more likely to get robbed. So there is a difference. I'm talking about chances as well.
Hmm.
So you're
Okay.
you're ranking humans significantly above non-humans like you originally were, because I
Yes,
think
yes,
I would
I'm still
disagree
doing
with
that.
that.
But when
Yeah,
it comes to money,
then I
money is,
disagree.
has yeah. When money or gold or something like that, that thing doesn't have a value of life. So I would
Mm-hmm.
never, because doesn't matter how much money I'm losing. If there is a place where I'll be like, okay, I don't have that money, so I will let that animal die now. But in 99% situation, even if I can't buy a new car, which is really happening from last 2 years, I would rather put that money towards my animals.
Okay.
Hmm.
And then I guess testing on animals isn't necessarily a job, but I guess it is a job.
It is a job.
So I guess we would probably agree that there's majority of testing on animals is not okay. Um, if you don't agree, I guess which things do you think testing is okay, or if you think most is okay, which ones do you think are not okay? And let's go back to Jeremy on this one.
Um, you're talking about animal testing
Yeah, yeah.
in like a scientific medical setting.
Yeah, sometimes it's
Uh,
for chemicals like, shampoos, makeup, stuff
yeah.
like that.
Well,
Sometimes it's
sure,
too, yeah.
that would be a scientific setting.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, it depends upon the all the consequences, right? So it's gonna depend. A lot of times, vegans will make. I think these are more sort of deontological vegans looking for a rule. So they're and using the concepts of possible and practicable or whatever, which is very very foreign to my way of thinking. A lot of times they'll make an exception just based upon the what they see as the necessity for humans, like developing a vaccine or a life saving medicine, and that's certainly one factor. But the nature of the testing is another factor. The nature, the level of sentience of the beings that you're talking about, the number of them that are used, and then the nature of the testing in terms of degrees of suffering. So that has to be played into it as well. I would like to see people a world where the consequential trade-offs are made very explicit and quantified in some way. I'd like to see the spreadsheet where someone says, look, for this medicine, these are the number of human well-being life years we expect to save, and these are the number of rats or rabbits or beagles that we are testing on, and this is how much like the ratio of value that we assign to their life relative to one human life, and then this is our assessment of the the um the negative well-being of the suffering that we're inflicting upon these animals, and then anybody can go to the spreadsheet and check, and they can say, yeah, you're saying one beagle is worth 1/10,000th of a human life. That seems really really too low.
Mm.
I would say it's like at least 1 in 500 or 1 in 100. And then you can look at, oh, you're saying that like you're comparing the suffering of a beagle having these burning chemicals shot into its eyes versus a human suffering from like psoriasis on their skin. And you're saying that the beagle suffering is almost about identical to the human suffering from psoriasis. And then the person looking at that spreadsheet can go, no, that number doesn't sound right. That sounds ridiculous. It would be much worse to have a chemical shot into my eyes than suffer from this skin condition. And so if everything was laid out, that's the
Mm-hmm.
consequentialist way of thinking. Put your
Yeah.
put your numbers out there, researchers, scientists, pharmaceutical companies. Tell us what you think the trade-offs are that justify what you're doing, so that we can all go and check whether those trade-offs match with our intuitions or conflict with our intuitions.
Gotcha.
Transparency.
Can you think of any cases that would never be acceptable, or is it just coming down to it can be a lot better than it is now, and testing should only happen with a likelihood of a good outcome?
You mean specific kind of cases that would never be acceptable? Like
Yeah, like there.
the only reason we're testing this new makeup is because we think it has a nicer color,
Yeah. Would you say
and
makeup
it
in general should?
requires
Would you
horrific
say?
torture to be applied to animals. That's really easy,
Would
it
you call it
seems, and that's a lot.
reasonable to say makeup should only ever be tested on willing humans?
Uh, willing humans, yeah, or just accept some risk of not testing. You know,
Yeah. Either one of those. I think you would want to label, and this would be an entire different debate, but I think you would want to label if it was not tested. I think something being sold in a store, we would want some form of regulations within our government to say, that you're buying, like 99% of the times you buy this type of thing, so makeup at the store, nobody ever has an issue with it. But the fact that some makeup company could put something in that there could be an issue and it's not tested, I would say it should be at least labeled if you're not going to test
Yeah,
it, or
some kind of
something like that.
temporary label system that would seem to be a pretty good law that says, you know, we believe that this product doesn't cause any harm because of this ingredient, but this label is going to be on it for 10 years, and during the time that it's out, then of course you'll be able to monitor for reports of damage, of injury, and then after that 10 years, if there are no significant reports, then you can remove the label from that ingredient.
Gotcha. Okay, Vibhav, do you think there's all testing should be not allowed, or is there certain testing that is acceptable?
If someone is making a treatment for cancer and they're using, let's say, 20 monkeys for that, uh, I think I'll allow that if I have a power to allow that, because cancer is a big deal. A lot of other humans die because of that. And when it comes to makeup, I don't think we men, especially, think about it all the way through. When we think about makeup, we are like, okay, just putting makeup on the face. It's way more than that. It's a psychological support for a lot of women. And women sometimes use that things on kids, their babies. We have to make sure that that thing is safe. But I agree that we should test makeups on willing humans, not on animals,
What about
because
Can
that
medicines?
I?
I talked
This
to a
is
guy.
yeah.
I talked to a guy that was he was going to university for something that involved a class that he was in, was doing part of doing studies, and so they'd be doing studies to see if a certain new type of Tylenol or something like that would have irritations to the stomach. And so they would write out their proposal, kind of like Jeremy was saying, where you'd say, here's the likelihood of what we want to find out and how much benefit it would have. Here's the downside of how many animals will likely be harmed. And then they get the approval, or they don't. Like an ethics committee will say, okay, this is reasonable. Do you think testing out medications should also be tested on willing humans, or is it okay because they're medicines to test out, like Tylenol, ibuprofen, that kind of thing on? I don't know if they do. Let's say rats.
if there's a danger to the life, if someone can literally die while testing the medicine, so it should not be tested on on humans. We can't ask people, hey, do you want to take some poison? It might be poison, maybe it's not. So we don't want to do that on humans. And if we need to see that if that medicine is really that important, little bit of cough, let's irritate thousand mices for that. Even though we are going to save billions of people from having cough, I don't agree with the fact that we are going to irritate thousand mice for that. So it really depends on case to case. If it's not a life threatening issue,
I'll just
using animals
reiterate,
doesn't.
you know,
Yeah,
I'll just
please.
reiterate the position I said a moment ago. Give me your numbers. You know, be transparent about the numbers, including the ethical ratios that you're relying upon. What do you think the probability is that there's going to be, you know, significant harm or death to a human? And then how many animals are involved, and how do you what ratio are you relying upon for the suffering of that animal to the potential the suffering of the human? Just tell us, because then any of us can go check and say that that doesn't seem right. If you're saying like a rat is not even worth one millionth of a human, then I'm going to say that that sounds ethically like very off. That's not a reasonable number to me. So just tell me, just researchers, tell me what your estimates are, and what your moral ratios are. Um,
So
but can I just say something else? This I might forget, and I think this is kind of relevant to the animal testing. As a consequentialist, um, I'm not sure that makeup or cosmetic treatments, you know, haircuts and things like that, actually contribute very much to positive well-being. I think there might be an illusion here, because for any given person, their well-being is clearly increased by makeup and these other treatments. But I think that might have the nature of like a nuclear arms race, where all of the it's usually women, but men. I mean, in terms of hairstyles and fashions and stuff, that's also men. But uh, trying to compete with the others by using more and more of these cosmetic processes. I think it's likely the case that they're just competing with each other, and they're offsetting each other, because what they're trying to do is compete for mates, compete for jobs, compete for status, and everybody's spending all this money, uh, either wearing better makeup or getting nicer tailored suits or whatever the case may be, and we just end up in this arms race where, on average, we're not that much better off than we were without it. So I think society there's a very strong argument that societies would be improved if a magic wand could be waved, and these uh, things like fashion and cosmetics could go away.
Ah, Jeremy, why? So, 2 points. In each first, why the reason we test is not because to check the efficacy of medicine. The reason we test is to figure out if there is something hidden issues. For example, I'm taking a certain medicine for my cough, and out of nowhere, I have a stomach pain, stomach ache. We need to know that beforehand before we give those medicines to humans, and that's why do we do animal testing. I don't agree with that, but that's the reason. So we can't actually say before testing on animals, so that many humans might get hurt, or that many animals get hurt. This is the numbers for, before presenting to the ethics committee. We don't have that information before testing the animals, because there is a it happened in past actually that we were making medicine for hair growth, and that medicine was really bad for kidneys. Somehow that medicine came in the market. A lot of people lost their kidneys. They needed surgeries. So this have happened in the past where we avoided further testing. Second, it's not artificial, buddy. I'm like, you know that case where they grew artificial ear in the back of mice? Are you aware about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So these things, these you use a certain word. I English is my third language. Don't judge me. So, they used that mice went through 3 surgeries in its life, and eventually some human got a real ear. Now it feels like it's not much. It's like it's we didn't need that. We that person could use plastic, but these things matter related to psychological issues. So what I want to say is, makeup is the same. We if there was a magic wand, of course, we don't need these artificial things in our lives, so makeups and all. But we do
Hmm.
need them, and but
Well,
I agree that we
in
shouldn't use. Yeah, please.
individually, we need them. It's like
Yeah, we need that.
everybody's sitting down at a crowded concert, and it's a little bit hard to see the stage. So, Viab, if you stand up, you can definitely see better. So should we? That's true. If you wear makeup and if you buy nice fashionable suits, then you will do better in life. You will have a
Yeah,
better
that
life.
is.
It's like, if you stand up in the concert, you will definitely see the concert better. But so should we conclude then that if everybody stood up, then everybody would see better? Of course
Right
not.
now everyone
Of
is
course
already
not.
standing. The situation in real life we have is everyone is already standing. Now we need to give tools to certain people so
Mhm.
they can see. A lot of people are there who can't see. it's
Mhm.
it's more about giving
And
equal chances to everyone.
well, when
All
you
right.
do
Well,
that, but when you do that, it doesn't just bring. When you do that with cosmetics, it doesn't just bring up the naturally ugliest people. to equity, because the more attractive people have access to those cosmetic techniques too, and they can make themselves even more unnaturally attractive than the originally unattractive people were,
But
and the
certain someone who
arms race continues.
but certain someone whom is really obsessed with their dark eyes, obsessed with their dark
Yeah.
circles, and that person gets to fix that thing. It doesn't matter if
And
that
then it
person is
just
not looking as cool as others, but that person is feeling better. It's way more than just putting makeup and looking better.
creates
Really about
a
psychological.
new kind of bias, a new kind of
I'm
bias
not
against
biased.
handsome, in society, all of that,
Why
it
would I
just
be
it
biased
just
about that?
no, it
I
just
look like
no,
an asshole. I know
I'm not
that.
saying you're biased. I'm saying that when you introduce all these things that let people change certain aspects of their appearance, it doesn't create equity. It just creates new bias against short people or whatever else. People that have disfigurement that the cosmetics can't do anything about, you know,
Mhm.
or or
So what is your
bias
option?
against
Let's not let
less
them
intelligent
let
people.
anyone. But we can't stop everyone. So I'd rather give everyone the
I'm just saying.
opportunity to make it better. Where's
I'm just
Kasim?
saying that there are arms races where, on the individual level,
Mhm.
in the individual level, it clearly improves well-being for the individual to have access to that. But
Mhm.
on the societal level, we don't have a population ethics interest in keeping these things around, because we don't have a good argument that they are increasing the population's well-being, as opposed to just wasting a whole bunch of resources for everybody to compete with each other, leaving nobody that much better off than they would have been without it.
But it's not
Nuclear
actually
arms is the
possible.
analogy
It's
here,
not
right?
actually possible to stop. See, it's not possible. If you take away every makeup from the market, people will create their own. People will make their own, and there are a lot of people who won't be able to. So now, only some of them have access to those things instead of everyone. We can't live in a hypothetical life. There are people who has power to just create an entire company just to have so they can have a lipstick. I know those kind of people in my life, so I'd rather let everyone have those things.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have the magic bullet that's gonna do away with all of these kind of game theory arms race kind of things that benefit each individual for doing it, but don't benefit the population when everybody does it, like
But
standing
it
up in a
does.
concert. But
What is the population, Jeremy? What is the
what?
population?
I
Multiple
mean, one of the
individuals,
things you
right?
can do is you can make a rule that everybody has to stay seated during the concert, and you can get kicked out if you stand up. I don't know
Jeremy,
how you
something
do.
interesting happened.
I'm
Something
just
interesting happened.
what?
Carson is not here. So
Yeah.
what happened? His house just lost power.
Oh, jeez.
So it's only you
Really?
and I. So yeah. So what we should do? We should continue for a few minutes. Let's see if he is coming
I'm
back in the
coming
next 10
back.
minutes or not, or
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can drop it then. I hope we'll
Uh,
be able to save this conversation, or it's live. It's live, okay.
you didn't say
So
what
it
you
will
thought
be
about.
saved.
Did you say what you thought about horses? The
Yeah,
kind of
I
thing that
agree with
people
you.
tend to ride them for.
I have two horses. They were using in race course. Uh, Both of them are now sick. So what I do, I just keep them and they'll die someday. So I don't think people should have horses for any reason. They do nothing good. I agree with you.
Uh, what do you think about? We have Jerem here in our group. Um, he has come out in favor of zoos.
Yeah,
I,
zoos
I
are
guess
complicated,
he's not
buddy.
talking about the worst zoos in the world, but he's probably talking about something like the San Diego Zoo, which
Zoos
many
are really
vegans would still
complicated for me.
oppose.
Hmm.
Yeah, me too. Because
Yeah, because
partly they might create a lot more people interested in animal well-being and
Mhm.
becoming vegans, by seeing a lot of non-human animals up close, that might offset the
Mhm.
less well-being of certain animals. But other animals might experience overall much better well-being. Not the ones that are large and don't have the room to roam around. You know, I see how a polar bear in a typical zoo is having a real loss of well-being, but it's harder for me to see how, like parrots that are in a large enclosure in a zoo are having a worse experience than they would be terrorized by predators in nature.
Yeah.
So does it depend what kind of animal for you? A lot, like what I just suggested.
I don't have really strong emotions towards insects. I'm sorry, I have that bias, but I don't have really strong emotions against insects. Other than that, I care about all animals.
So there's the question of what level of sentience the animal has, and I agree. I'm very unsure about earthworms, for example,
Mhm.
but then there's the question of there's the basic ethical foundational question of is it okay or is it even positively good to have certain kinds of animals living in captivity on the grounds that their well-being in captivity is much better than it would be in nature. Smaller, not probably not the large predators, but the smaller animals that can be given a lot of space and an environment that recreates the good aspects of their natural environment, but not the predators, not the parasites, not the risk of starvation, etc. Small monkeys, parrots, things like this. Seems like we can make a pretty good case that their life in a zoo like the San Diego Zoo is going to be much better than a natural life
Of
for that
course.
species.
Yeah,
And I'm a consequentialist, so I would just say that I would approve of that, like Jerome has said. Seems different for
so
polar bears, though. Although then you'd have to talk
yeah.
about, I mean, what are they feeding the polar bear? Is it possibly less harm than the polar bear is the suffering that it's inflicting on its prey animals in the wild, or is it more harm? But
So
speaking about the polar bear itself, it seems like its life in a typical zoo sucks compared to
of course it
its
does.
life in the wild. But
I don't imagine that animal being happy in a zoo, because these animals travel a lot. They walk all most of their they are constantly walking. They're looking for food. This is what natural is, and I care about animal suffering a lot. But at the same time, I have a feeling somewhere that if there is a tiger killing another animal, cheetah or something else. So we shouldn't interrupt that thing. Whatever is happening, it's natural. So most of the time, I'm like, okay, let's ignore whatever is happening in the wild.
you
So
know,
if yeah,
okay. Like what I was saying with the testing, I would like to see zoos have an ethical spreadsheet that lists what they think the level of well-being that they're providing for these animals are, and then the impact on the well-being of other sentient creatures in terms of what the animals are being fed, um, and then show what they think the trade-off is. Be very explicit about all of the factors um, behind their decision, and then show me what they think the well-being of this animal in the wild would be, and give us what you think the numbers are. Give us all the facts and give us what you think the reasonable trade-offs are, as part of an annual um, ethical assessment. And then we can go and check it and we can say, like, this number doesn't sound reasonable to me. I don't believe this premise that you have in your measurement, in your calculation. Yeah, I think it would be a much better world if people really got used to being very clear and explicit uh, about what they are basing their judgments upon, so that others could check up on it and see whether they agree or disagree.
Yeah, I agree. Transparency is important. But don't you think like if someone have a lion in zoo, they are killing approximately one one animal every day to just to keep that lion alive?
Is that true?
Of course, like think
A
about it.
large animal?
Uh, like if they're feeding chickens to that tiger,
Okay,
at
okay,
least four chickens every day. At least
sure.
four chicken every
With
day when it comes.
chickens, sure. Okay, yeah. I was
And
thinking. I was thinking something like a cow. I was thinking. I doubt predators would
if
ever
they're feeding
survive
cow,
in the
I don't
wild
know.
if they had to eat that
I
much in
don't know
one
which
day.
zoo is feeding what to the. If they're feeding cows and they have a herd of lions, like three or four lions, one cow is dying every day.
Yeah.
In wild, lions actually usually eat three once in 3 or 4 days, but in zoos they're eating every day.
So
You
yeah,
there?
I mean, again, that seems like you can make a pretty clear case, but then
We are everywhere today. Like we started from something absolutely
yeah,
different, and
Doc.
now we are.
Well, it's it's related though, because neither you and I seem to be a deontologist that has these very absolute rules that say something like, I was just seeing
Do you
vegan.
support abortion? Carson is not here to control us.
Well,
What about you,
I
the
was
abortion
supposed
talk?
to be on for the abortion talk, so um, I
Let's go through quickly here. Do you support abortion?
so my my position is that there's a very big difference between the morality and the what should be the legal position. I'm always surprised that more people don't agree with this. It seems so common sense. It seems just fundamental to anybody having a sensible political view. Um, many abortions decisions are going to be morally wrong, but similarly, many decisions to not have an abortion, many decisions to give birth and raise a child are morally wrong, given the pregnant woman's life situation. People do the morally wrong thing by bringing children into bad life conditions all the time, and people make immoral abortion decisions. But I hold a fairly strong politically pro-choice opinion, and that's based upon thinking that when the government criminalizes something, gives power to the police to try to interfere and ruin lives, it often causes much larger negative side effects, and that's number one. Is unless I think there's a very clear absolute need and an easy way to enforce a law, I generally don't want things to be illegal because I'm worried about the power of a police state. And then the second thing is that when a society is very strongly divided, you should not be trying to criminalize things that a majority or large minority of the society feels are very important to them, because you can create real constant violence and possibly civil war.
Yeah,
And a really clear example is religion. So I'm not religious. I don't really respect religions very much
same
generally.
here. I'm an
And
atheist. I hate religions.
there are things that they do that I would just consider evil. Teaching little children about hell, where non-believers will burn for eternity, or even in the Hindu and Buddhist tradition, teaching people about karma, which is equally bullshit. So
Karma
if
is a bad idea because I don't.
yeah,
Yeah,
if
6 year
if
old
something
girl
bad
gets
happens to
raped
you,
and
it must be your
yeah,
fault. If you got
you are six
cancer as
year
a
old, you
child,
got
you
raped,
must.
and now it's your mistake. How is it
Right.
even?
Yeah. What did you do
Yeah.
what did you do in your past that gave you bad karma that led to your being raped? Yeah, it's fucking evil.
I'm
And
glad we
it's
agree on almost every.
and so yeah, but so people teach these evil, harmful, destructive things, but I don't think it's a good idea at all to have it criminalized by the government to teach people about karma or teach people about hell, because you will get civil war,
Yeah,
and that's worse. That war, actual war, anarchy surrounding everybody
because
is
in civil
worse
war,
than.
almost every innocent person is gonna get hurt.
And
Powerful people will stay safe, but the innocent people will get hurt when it comes to
so
civil wars.
so when I talked with Carson about this before, about why I think lots of things that are morally very wrong should still be legal, in order to protect this kind of breakdown of society, um,
Mhm.
I talked a lot about societies that were in a state of civil war, and then what they had to do to create reconciliation.
I think
Ireland,
I
and
think you are
South
the one who
Africa.
don't. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off. I think you are the one
Okay.
who disagree with me on something. I think you disagree with me on banning certain medical practices like homeopathy, or crystal healing. I don't remember
Um,
the name of that person. Because if I could, I would completely ban homeopathy, crystal healing, card reading. I'm gonna, if I could, I would have banned these things a long time back.
I mean, I'm not
Because this
sure whether I disagree or how much, but the very first thing I would always say to somebody saying something like that is, what does ban mean? Because it
ban
seems
means
very.
not allowed to do it legally.
So yeah, that's still far too vague. How much power are you going to give police to enforce it? What punishments are you going to deal to the people? What are you going to do to people who continue to try to practice it on the black market? Are you going
They'll be
to
in jail.
execute them?
No,
Are you going to
no.
give them life
I don't agree with
imprisonment?
death penalty. It doesn't matter what. I
So
don't.
so saying ban doesn't tell me most of the information that I need to know.
So people
I
will
need
be
to
in
know
jail
how
for
you're
that.
going to try to stop homeopathy in society by using the police.
So if so, you need to be in a public domain to practice certain things or to advertise certain things. If you're going to advertise openly about homeopathy, now you we know where you are. Now you'll be in jail. Reason behind that is homeopathy hurts more people than it helps. It's
Sure.
a placebo effect, and that's it.
I think
And
so.
so
Yeah,
I don't know
that
how
seems
much.
pretty clear.
Yeah, so how long? I don't know how long those people should be
Yeah.
in jail,
But
but
that
there
can't
should be
that
a
can't be the
warning.
whole argument. That because of
That
the
is the whole
examples I gave.
argument.
No, it can't. It can. Well,
Why not?
then if your entire argument is that homeopathy hurts more people than it helps, therefore it should be criminalized. Teaching little children about hell or karma hurts more people than it helps. So
So
your reasoning would suggest, if that's the only reasoning
people are because
required, then those things should be criminalized.
people are not gonna come on road, start fighting each other for the sake of homeopathy, but they are gonna do it
Okay,
for
so there's
religion.
another premise in there too, which is
Yeah,
that
there's a
banning
premise out there.
homeopathy won't lead to civil war. Okay,
Yeah,
so that's just what
I
I
would do
want to just point
almost
out. There's
anything.
there's
Yeah,
another there's another piece of the argument
I
besides
don't.
just this thing. X hurts more people than it helps, therefore X should be criminalized.
Yeah,
There's a separate stage of the argument that says
yes.
we can effectively criminalize X without causing
I
large
would never
negative
ban
consequences to
religion.
society, right?
I hate religion, but I will never ban religion. Why? Because if I do it, there's a chances a lot of people will get killed for no good reason. Because a lot of people are gonna support me. A lot of people will be like, no, we don't support you, and now there's a problem.
Yeah.
Ouch, bad luck. Hope everything gets back up ASAP. What's
Yeah,
yours?
just so that's would be my main position on abortion is, you
Yeah.
know, we we absolutely, in general, we should not blur the distinction between moral goodness or badness and the reasonableness of criminalizing something.
Yeah.
Those are very, very different concepts. There are many examples of things that I consider morally evil that should remain legal in a healthy society, and people should try to combat them with persuasion, intellectual and emotional, maybe spiritual persuasion, however you think about it, but not by trying to seize
It's
the
like,
power of the police. Because when you say illegal, what you're ultimately saying is, I'm willing to try to seize the power of police to inflict violence on other people in order to stop this thing, and then the rational response of the other people who you are attacking by criminalizing something that they want to do is to try to get violent power in their own hands and fight back against you.
yeah.
And in the United States right now, I think there is a very significant danger of something approaching civil war over the issue of abortion. Because the society
Yeah.
is so divided, there are neighboring states that have different views, and people are talking. You literally have a state border where people are seriously talking about life imprisonment or the death penalty for something that on the other side of that border, people consider a very important political civil right for women that needs to be absolutely protected.
Of
And you've
course,
got
it
these
should be.
undefended border with this is first degree murder on this side, and this is a very crucial civil right on the other side. Where could that possibly lead but outright violence? That's not a
Yeah,
stable society.
that's the reason we should ban. We shouldn't ban things which is like, there should be a line. Okay, if you cross that, we are gonna ban certain things, but otherwise we are gonna let people do whatever the hell they want. That's the safest bet I can play.
And Carson, during our talk, he kept saying, giving examples like, what are you going to do if somebody taps you on the shoulder and you don't want it, and you ask them to stop, and then they do it again, And his idea was that because there's some problem like that we can't make go away, we must make it illegal. We must criminalize it and have the police stop it. And my attitude is, there are always going to be bad. There are always going to be evils in the real world. And you need more than that in order to justify making something illegal.
Yes,
in order to justify making alcohol illegal, making
and they did try that actually. I think in
right.
US for a while, alcohol
Yeah.
was illegal.
You need much more of an argument than to say alcohol causes a lot of harm, or even to say alcohol causes
Okay,
more
someone
harm
in
than
chat.
benefits. You need
Okay,
more than that.
So
Oh, he's
someone
killing
in
that.
chat is asking me actually, shouldn't we also ban cigarette smoking by your logic? Why? I
Your
know it
logic or
can
my
cause cancer.
logic? That sounds your logic.
First of all, it's not my logic. First of all, but
Okay.
but why would you ban cigarette? It can cause cancer, but kids are not using it. I'm 29. I think 28. I think I can use cigarettes if I want. I'm putting my life in danger, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and I would say the
People,
number one reason to not ban it is ban means give the police power to try to catch anybody smoking cigarettes, anybody in possession of cigarettes, anybody shutting down the manufacturer. And if you did it in your country, they could probably stop all the tobacco farms, because those are pretty obvious. But then people would smuggle them in from other countries, and
that's what.
you just create a
So
lot
that's
more
what happens
organized
when you.
crime.
Yeah, and same thing happens when you ban abortion. It stops the safe abortions. It doesn't stop
Yeah.
abortions at all.
Well, the people on the anti-abortion side are going to say, well, surely it's going to probably, I mean, surely it's going to reduce the rate of abortion somewhat. It's not going
And
to,
what are you trying to achieve? And a lot of
and
dead dead females who were
yeah,
pregnant.
yeah.
So that's also gonna happen.
Mhm.
And at what stage? Because see, egg is alive, sperm is alive. There is not a single stage where that fetus, that thing is growing inside the stomach is not alive. It's always alive from the when it's the size of a pea. Uh, I don't know the word, but green pea, it's alive. It's always alive. So how do you? And in that by that logic, we should stop masturbation as well, or periods, because you're losing a egg every time.
Yeah. I
It
mean, there's one more
it
thing I
makes
can
no
say,
sense.
as a
Yeah, same
positive
here. I think we should. Yeah,
consequentialist, I think
yeah. I think we
I
should.
think one of the great harm in killing somebody is the loss of potential happiness. And so that comes up
Yeah,
with
just
abortion
I
too.
just want to
And
answer someone in the chat. So that person is saying, but homeopathy should be banned because it may cause harm. Don't cigarette cause harm? So answer for that person is, when I use a cigarette, I know it's dangerous. I can see on that packet that it can cause cancer. I can die because of it. But when people use homeopathy, they're literally thinking that it's a medicine I'm taking.
mhm.
False advertisement is a huge part of it. So they are thinking, okay, I'm taking a medicine to help myself, but it's not a medicine. So that is my problem with it, and
You
that is
seem
the
to be
real harm.
invoking a concept of sort of like informed choice. But I wonder whether somebody might say that the ignorance of the person who buys the homeopathic medicine.
It's
um,
not ignorance. When you see ads on TV or when you see ads on newspaper, then you might get falsely convinced about
yeah,
certain things. My
sure.
own father believes that homeopathy is a real medicine. I
But
because
somebody might say that a chemical addiction,
Mhm,
especially something as highly addictive as nicotine,
mhm.
is also a form of not being motivated by a reasonable, informed choice. Your
No one
addiction
is,
is your addiction is
but at
somewhat
the
taking away your choice in the same way that a false advertisement takes away somebody's informed
but
choice.
I am, but at least I am aware because no one is telling me that cigarettes are good for my health. You see the difference.
No,
No
but a
one.
lot of a lot of people are trying to downplay, maybe not today, but in the 1970s and 1980s, there are ads of people out doing athletic, climbing a mountain or whatever with a cigarette. And so
Doctors used to
they're
smoke
not trying
cigarettes
to say
while
it's good for your
checking.
health exactly, but they're trying to say it's like smoking 2 packs a day is completely compatible with good health.
No, they did said that it's good for your health. They were literally giving cigarettes to housewives, saying that okay, it's gonna help
Okay,
you with
that's
your
maybe
stress.
longer ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I did research on this. It's really interesting because doctors used to prescribe cigarettes as medicine back then, and that was a problem. But now we can read on the packet, we know that it's really dangerous for my health.
Mhm.
And if I choose to smoke after that, it's related to my freedom. But
And
when I'm being lied to, it's not related to my freedom. It's I'm being lied to. It's different.
similar to what tobacco companies used to do. I believe that McDonald's around the world is currently using campaigns where a thin Ronald McDonald is doing exercises, playing sports, and the idea is supposed to be that like actively convincing people that it doesn't matter if you had a meal of McDonald's every day. If you stay active, that would be fine for your health. um, so
They did
there's
that.
something
They
there's
also
some
did that.
that's going
Contrarian
on right
420, you
now,
can
right?
come on our chat and do it next time.
um,
we I'm okay with contrarian 420 if you want to talk. This guy has really some good ideas, I think. people are real. People
Yeah.
don't really think about these things. They just
Are you in
want to
charge?
say
Do you
something.
have the ability to add people now?
No, I am
Or
using.
anybody with a link can come
I'm.
in.
I
Oh.
know I have a link. I think we can add people, but we shouldn't because it's been 1 hour and 90 minutes, and we don't have cars. And the person who owns the channel, the only reason I'm going on is other than me, 9 people are watching. Okay, let's ask
Yeah,
people
without Carson
if
it
anyone
continues,
have a
right?
good idea, they can come in chat and tell us, and we can discuss that. I hope Jeremy, you have time, and I'm not holding you here.
Oh yeah, sure. I was supposed to do the original conversation. I was supposed to do starting in about 30 minutes.
Okay, then I think you should go for it. And
No, on
we'll,
this channel, So
on
if
this
there's no
channel. Okay, so
Carson,
you're just
I don't.
sitting. Yeah.
I got
So
added to this one later.
RC8802, yeah, I do like your frog profile picture. Okay.
Is somebody coming
Well,
in?
yeah, someone should really come in because Carson was the person who
we
was
need
literally taking
we need some new blood.
drifting this thing. Hey, we were talking. We have
And
had a
Carson
subject actually,
is openly
misinformation.
against all pets.
Sorry.
We did. It kind of transitioned into that. But yeah, Carson was the opponent in a kind of major debate. Carson would be the
Yes,
one
and
that
he left,
he's
and we agree
completely
with each other.
against pets.
Yeah.
He wants a world without pets. So
Oh, so Jeremy, there's a thing. I also don't support having pets for just for fun reason. See, I have animals, but none of those animals are my pets. I have animals sensory. Those animal, I'm serving those animals right now. Reason I don't think people should have pets because they do cause a lot of harm. If a single person have a dog, that dog is gonna live alone all the day. You'll need to feed them something. So when you're feeding them something, someone is killing something for that dog. In my case, if there are chicken and mutton shops, so the waste product, they deliver waste product to me, and I use that product to feed my animals. So there is literally zero additional suffering because of my animals.
yeah.
So that's something I'm still confused about. Uh, yes, it's more than
Yeah, there's
homeopathy.
the
Yeah,
question of the.
yeah. Tell me. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, there's the question of people thinking that dogs need to be fed non-vegan diets, which I think if it's true for any dog, it's a very kind of rare health situation for dogs. Most of them, some
Yeah, because they are meat-eating
quite
animals. They
healthy
need
vegan
meat.
diet can be found. No, I don't. I don't think that's true at all. I think
I
that
know some vegetarian dogs,
dogs are.
but I know vegetarian dogs. I know dogs. Those dogs can actually survive on tomatoes for some reason. But when it comes to most
Uh,
dogs, not every dog can be a vegan. There are a lot of dogs. Those dogs
I
need
think
like 800 calories
that's
every
true,
day.
but in the opposite ratio. I think most dogs can thrive on the best vegan pet food, supplemented with the kind of vegetables that are good for them. And it's only some dogs that develop conditions where they can't. But I mean, we're not. I don't think we're the kind of scientists that can
Yeah, I don't
solve
have
that
any data to back
empirical issue.
about that. I
But
don't have
I
any
was
data
gonna. I
about
mean, there's
that.
two separate questions because there's the question: even if you have a completely, plant-eating pets, um, are you gonna, are you gonna consider crop deaths? Are you gonna consider the other impact of plant agriculture and say, it's one thing for humans that are already here to accept that trade-off, but we shouldn't be, we shouldn't even be having pet animals for pleasure because of the impact, even if the diet is completely plant-based. That seems like it's going pretty far, because I don't think there's such a great moral difference as moral patience between humans and non-human animals. So I think that kind of argument, if we're going to accept crop deaths for feeding humans, then I think we
Are you
can
aware
accept it
about
for companion
animal
animals.
assisted? Are you aware about animal assisted interventions?
Animal assisted interventions.
Yeah,
Is
it's
this like
like having
companion
a
animals
therapy.
for
Yeah,
people that
yeah,
have
companion
psychological
therapy
problems?
dog. Yeah. So I support that part
Yeah.
because human psychological health is important, and that person, and we can't actually have a living person, living human, to assist every other human. Because if I'm gonna work for someone and help someone with their psychological issues, that person or someone should be able to give me enough money to feed me and my family. So it's not
Mm.
practical. So I'm so confused on this subject, but I don't have any pets for myself because I don't see that, somehow I'm still uncomfortable with that idea. But if people, I really don't oppose the idea of having pets.
I think there's a kind of a strange, you know, maybe it's not strange, but it's kind of annoying uh, economic. I'm definitely not anti-capitalist. I'm pretty pro market, and I'm not one of these people that says no ethical consumption under capitalism and veganism needs to be communist. Or I'm not one of these
I don't
people. But
get
I
that. Yeah.
have to say that before what I'm about to say. But I think with the therapy dogs, there's this kind of phenomenon where we were selling expensive drugs to people to deal with their PTSD. The pharmaceutical industry is trying to make as much money as they can off of these people. And then somebody realizes, hey, a lot of your need for drugs could be reduced if you just had a golden retriever and just spent time having this nice relationship with the dog in your home. And then people instantly started thinking, how can we commodify this? How can we sell this? And then they came up with the idea that these golden retrievers need to be trained by experts and then sold to these people as
And we need to
trained
breed them
trained
now.
therapy
Inbreeding is, yeah.
dogs, and you have to pay
Yes.
thousands of dollars to get your special
Just
licensed
have a
therapy dog.
bloody normal dog in your house and everything is fine.
Yeah, they're like making something expensive out of something that was really easy
Something is in trend, so everyone wants to make money out of it.
already
I don't
existing.
hate that idea, but come on, draw a line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what what the possible legitimate actual training could be that goes far beyond what at least certain breeds of dogs would naturally do for a person. Somebody's going to get pissed off at me for my ignorance here, but it just really does seem like a problem in search of a solution. I mean, a solution in search of a problem. That's how the reverse expression goes. Like you already had the possibility of having a relationship with dogs for your general psychological well-being, and if you're the good kind of human, they're
Yeah.
actually part of your family, and it produces very very positive well-being for the dogs.
We should but we should have laws against how we treat these animals. Because we have laws, but no one is serious about those things. Because what happens, I saw people with pet animals, but those animals are in really bad shape. They're not being fed on time. Those dogs or cats, whatever, are not being able to do whatever they want, not being able to play whenever they want. So these certain things, these things which actually irritates me. Other than that, I think I'm mostly fine with having animals in house.
So you want to look at chat here? It seems like they're arguing about how easy it is to come up with vegan pet food, to find and buy it, or to how practicable it was.
I say we can have vegan pet food which contains meat.
Oh, okay.
So
If it's entirely byproducts, you mentioned that earlier.
yes,
It
because
doesn't it doesn't contribute to economic demand.
economic or any addition, because the idea of veganism, the first person who came up with this idea, the I think he was a German doctor who came up with this idea and wrote a book on it about 70 110 years ago. I think I don't have numbers here, but the idea was to avoid as much as suffering we can. So if I so there, I know someone who says I'm a vegan, but he eats roadkill,
He eats
and
what?
I am okay.
Roadkill? Oh, okay,
Yeah,
good. I've never
and
actually
I'm
met
yeah.
somebody. Um,
You
yeah,
never met somebody. Okay, so
I
it's
never
really
met somebody who openly eats roadkill.
there's no shame. There's no shame, I think, in it.
Even though I live in the mountains and there's plenty of roadkill, um, and I also know people who live further out of the city, way out in the mountains, far from civilization, and they eat they hunt animals like squirrels and rattlesnakes and stuff like that. But even those people, I haven't heard them talking about finding roadkill. It's yeah, it it's hard to come up with. I mean, yeah, there's nothing directly ethically wrong with eating roadkill. Only indirect things, like somebody might try to do things to get more animals hit by trucks.
We just talk about this phenomena because that something is in trend, and someone will try to get some sort of economical profit out of it. So
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
it's possible. Yeah, it's possible that someone will try to get more roadkill somehow.
that's the problem with the. This is the key problem with these, humane, ethical animal farming concepts. You know, people who are deontologist inclined, who just want to say like vegan, of course, recently posted it's very simple, just don't use animals, that's the simple thing. He's
It's
very anti-consequentialist and I'm very consequentialist, and people like that often think that a consequentialist like me is gonna be really happy about the concept of pasture raised, very quickly humanely killed animal farming, and of course I'm not. And the major reason why is just what you said, that I'm aware of economic incentives, and I'm very aware that any like situation like that on the level of a society is not gonna last for long. It's gonna always be absolute marketing bullshit, because
yeah,
the price of meat in that kind of situation would be so high that only the very, very wealthiest people could afford it, and immediately all the other people would start demanding it, and they would go back to factory farms. The whole reason that factory farms exist is that you have to do things like that if you're going to create this kind of product in a way that's not extremely expensive. And so it's not reasonable to talk about, even as a ethical consequentialist, it's not reasonable to talk about these enormously inefficient ways of producing animal products more humanely. But it is reasonable to talk about not having any animal products, and that's the basis. That's a big part of the consequentialist advocating veganism.
yeah. And the person I was supposed to have conversation with tonight, Dylan, just texted in the group that, oh no, I forgot, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Yeah,
Gosh.
What's Carson saying about his home situation?
Carson just texted few minutes ago that
That's
he
kind of weird
he find.
weather-wise.
Is it?
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, where did he? Oh, he posted in side stuff.
So I think we'll end this soon. So Jeremy, I have a question for you. If let's
He's
say
going
you
to do
have
it from he's going to do it from somebody else's house. Yeah, I think we can
Yeah.
end this one, and Carson's going to try to. It must be something specific about his house. He might have had a tree branch fall on his power line.
Sure.
So
Before we end, I
he's
just
getting
have
ready to
one
do the
question
next
for you.
talk from it for a neighbor's house. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. You there?
Yeah.
Jeremy.
Hello.
So I think we agree on most of the things. Just one last thing. I have a hypothetical question for you. If you're okay
You have
with
a
it.
what question for me? A legal question?
Hypothetical.
Oh, hypothetical. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So if I give you a button right now, you can press that button, and within 5 minutes, everyone in your country will be a vegan. Every human in your country will be a vegan.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say vegan, it means that they will not eat anything, any animal product.
Yeah.
But everything else will be the same. There is nothing else is changing. The only thing is changing that they will no longer eat by choice any animal product. Would you press that button?
Yeah, that would be the best single choice that any human has made in all of history.
You sure about it?
And choosing not to press that button would be the worst single choice that any human has made in history.
So you need to understand that nothing else is changing. So those people who are, so there are like in my country, approximately 35% people is completely dependent on these things, on animal products for their survival. So they no longer have anything to do. So they can no longer make money. They can no longer do anything.
Economies and the welfare system of a mixed economy state can take care of those things. It doesn't even. It might be a challenge, but it would not. It would pale in comparison to the scope of horrific suffering in the animal holocaust in factory farms.
So you'll press that button, right? Great.
I can't think of any single action, any single choice by any human that has ever been as morally good as that action would be.
Yeah, I agree with you that
unless you believe in Jesus Christ dying for everyone's sins and saving everybody from hell, which I don't.
Poke me with a knife here.
That would be. I know we have Phil. I don't know if Phil's gonna listen to this, but that would be the kind of thing that you'd have to say to come up with any choice that would be morally better than that choice to press that button. Because the animal holocaust is the worst thing that's ever happened by orders of magnitude. It's probably more suffering every 2 or 3 years than all of the suffering from all causes of all the humans that have ever existed since our ancestors diverged from the chimpanzees' ancestors.
We are also animals, but at the same time, I think second most horrific thing I would say, the first one will still be the actual Holocaust.
That's gonna take a lot of numbers. Like I said, put the spreadsheets together.
I don't think we should.
How much less? What small fraction of a human's life you think a chicken's life is worth, and then how you would quantify the suffering of the typical victim of the Nazis versus the typical victim of the of chicken farming, and you lay out the numbers, and let's see which ratios in the spreadsheet we agree with or disagree with. That's how you're going to figure out something like that. And I've thought about it many times to justify my claim that the factory farming Holocaust is far and away the worst thing that has ever happened in history. Which is not to take, it's not to diminish any of the huge moral atrocities in human history. Such as the Nazi Holocaust, is not to take away from that at all. It's the opposite is to show that as extremely horrible as these things were, what we're doing to animals in factory farms is still vastly greater than that.
So,
Yeah.
so I just realized that why your answer is different and still right is because you live in a different country and I live in a different country. In my country, things are actually better, way better, because most of the even milk products, the products we have, those animals are well taken care of. Most, not all of them, and the animal suffering when it comes to factory farming is way less because we already have like 40 to 5% people are vegetarian, so they are not killing anything to eat.
Yep.
And
And the quantity of meat that the average Indian eats is, even the meat eating Indian,
way
is
less. Oh my
much
god,
less than
much
Americans.
less.
You
Yeah,
don't
so
have the concept of food being like many Americans, the big large amount of meat and then some small vegetable side dishes.
we don't have that. Meat is already kind of expensive. Vegetables are cheap, so it may so because I wouldn't press that button because I know that 35-40% people will lose their jobs. My government is not really efficient when it comes to helping people. So for me, that answer is different. But yeah, in your country, when I know that every barbecue is killing a lot of animals every time someone decides, okay, I'm gonna have 2 beers and I'm gonna sit in lawn and I'm gonna barbecue something. So yeah,
And also
there's a
there's the
difference.
fact that we hide our torture away so well in the US that, visiting a country, like I'm sure, like many parts of India, at least, where you're going to see slaughter on the street or in the business of meat, of butchers. They're going to butcher the animal right there. To
Yeah,
a tourist visiting and walking by, that's going to seem like a much worse society, because all of these horrific sights and smells and sounds are going to be present to their senses. But actually, and where is in America, it's sanitized for most people. But the
most
actual
people don't
torture
even see
that's
how
going
those
on,
animals are being killed.
yeah, the actual torture is much worse in the US. It's
Yeah,
just much less visible,
and I
much more
think we have
hidden.
transparency. And a lot of people see what's happening, and they next time they don't want to eat a chicken
Right. That could be part of the
because
cycle. Yeah.
approximately like 15 years back when I decided to be a vegan, that was really hard to find another vegan. It was like next to impossible. But now, if I am on Facebook, I'm on in a local WhatsApp group or something, I know that like 1 out of 10th person will be like, okay, I don't eat it. I'm a vegan. They might be lying or what, but the numbers of vegan increasing in my locality is really awesome. That thing is really awesome. So I think if we keep the conversations and these things, we might end up with a completely vegan society within 100 years.
I think when I look at the history of other movements, the changes in the gay rights movement that have happened over just my lifetime, and the speed of change with slavery in the late 17 and into 1800s. Yeah, I do think people tend to underestimate moral progress, whether you're one of the people that is the activist, or whether you're part of the average person in society. There does seem to be an arc of moral progress. It does seem
Yeah,
to go faster than people think in the moment. And so I wouldn't be surprised if veganism became the sort of international ethical norm in only 100 years, the same way that slavery is the international accepted ethical norm. That doesn't mean that all people will stop treating
But
animals as
most
products, but it would be recognized as a
once we are
general
like
evil.
once we are like 90% vegan or vegan, then or 80% vegan. If the society has 80% vegans, then we'll be able to actually, without any fear of civil war, we'll be able to actually enforce some laws that
Sure, that's
okay,
right.
yeah, that laws that okay, you want to eat an animal. This is the process, and this is the process in which a lot of way less animals will get hurt.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. You lead with the morality, lead with the
Yeah,
individual moral and philosophical change, and then you reach a certain point where just like we are able to criminalize abuse of dogs, dog fighting, and similar things in the U.S. today, because a large majority of people already morally oppose it. When we get to that moral moral threshold of a majority of individual vegans, then the criminal law can start to be
yeah.
um, a reasonable tool. But it's yeah, it's obviously not until you have the large moral force of the majority
It is going to take
first.
time for sure. Maybe it won't change in our lifetime, but we can expect this in a decent period of time because people really fought for to be able to have slaves in their house. People
Yeah.
really were like, okay, we need these people, we need slaves, and those people actually were actually thinking those are good people.
Oh man, I'm sure that we could have an hours long conversation about the
Yes,
caste
and we should
system.
stop this now. Yeah.
Indian, like they don't, even people who don't technically call it slavery, the caste system leads to essentially slave type systems. But
We
yeah,
have that. Yeah.
yeah, we should stop this
Yes.
and have this kind of conversation another time.
Okay, Louis Ghetto is saying, Jeremy got well done, well put.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks,
Okay, take
guys.
care.
Thanks everybody
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah.
Really nice meeting you, and hope to talk to you
Guys,
soon.
please subscribe to this channel, Reasonable Vegan. Carson is an awesome guy.
Absolutely, everybody
Despite
like
the
and
yeah,
subscribe. Keep all of us reasonable vegans going.
yeah. Okay, take care.
Take care.